I'm Dr. Cynthia. When I was 4 years old, my dad left on a top secret mission in the South Pacific, and he was gone for 13 months. He was the chief engineer building the world's first hydrogen bomb. So in the South Pacific, my dad built the first hydrogen bombs, and then he watched them explode. After all the explosions took place, he came home. When he returned home, I was so excited to see my dad. I was wiggling around in my chair at dinner, and my pigtails were just bobbing along. And I could see, energetically, I could see this bomb explode. I was a very sensitive kid. And so I could imagine the radiation, the fallout. I didn't have those words, but I could see this stuff in the air, falling, mixing into the earth, getting into the ocean and the water, and getting into the plants. And I couldn't figure out how to separate the radiation from the water. So very innocently at dinner, I said, "Who will clean up the mess?" Which was my words for, how do we separate this stuff out? My dad stood up, took a deep breath. The room got really silent. "Go to your room." I'd never been sent to my room in my whole life, and I never did after that. I was terrified. I went to my room and I got all scrunched up and I got in the corner. I didn't know what to do quite. I felt so alone and so powerless, and something inside switched on. And two things happened when that inner switch took place. One was, I wanted to know why people killed each other. I wanted to know why there was so much violence in the world. I just didn't get it. I thought adults were pretty stupid, that they were creating this huge mess, and I didn't know why they couldn't see what was going on. The second thing that happened was I realized I was just a little girl, and I was powerless. And I also realized I had to keep quiet. You see, we lived in suburbia in Southern California. And I had to lie about what my dad did at school to my friends. I had to say he was a construction engineer, and everybody, I guess, thought he built buildings or something. And I realized that if I spoke up, it could be serious trouble for my family. Lots of mornings I'd go into my parents' bedroom and my dad would be packing a suitcase. We never knew where he was going. We never knew when he would return. He could be gone for days, weeks, months. All of a sudden he'd pop up for dinner one night. No idea what was going on with him. So I realized it was very important for me to keep quiet about what was happening in our family. So that night kind of started this trajectory of my life. I wanted to figure out why there was all this violence. Why did people want to kill each other? I just didn't get it. So I studied how the brain worked. I studied molecular biology, quantum physics. I got a PhD in cellular transformation. I became a psychotherapist. I worked with clients for years, still continually discovering what it is at this core of violence that lives within people. I also kept quiet. All of my research, everything I knew, I was very quiet about a lot of things that were going on in my life. This pattern of keeping quiet took place when I was a little girl. And what happens is when things happen when you're small, They get woven into your nervous system. It's a patterning, it's a conditioning, it's unconscious. So for me to learn to speak up was huge. It took tremendous courage for me to start to learn to speak up. Over the years, as I was learning about how the brain and nervous system works, I realized that I was shutting down to keep quiet. I was shutting me down to protect my dad. I didn't want anything to happen to him as a little kid. But at the time, of course, I had no idea the long-range consequences. And as an adult, what's happened is that keeping quiet has been programmed and wired in my nervous system. So that's really difficult for me to speak up. And I know I'm not alone with this. In my years of therapy, I saw so many people who kept quiet about what was going on in their families just to survive. But as an adult, we have the opportunity to start to shift. And what I realized was that I could start to unwind all those decades, all the neural programs of keeping quiet that were wound into my nervous system. I also discovered that wrapped around my DNA were these shadows of terror, shadows of violence, and that I could release the shadows of violence that were hiding my true essence. So as a child, keeping quiet felt like I had to, and I think I did. But now as an adult, I have the choice to speak up. I can speak up about what I see happening in the world. And I know this is true for a lot of you. That things have happened in our families, things have happened in the past. But now, it's time to speak up. Wrapped around your neural programs, encoded in your DNA, are generations of silence, generations of violence. I've discovered that in order to heal, in order to shift that external violence that we see in the world right now, it starts within. I had to start looking at all of my programs and patterns of violence that I had inherited through my lineage. And as I went in deeper and cleared out more and more of this yucky stuff that it was absolutely terrifying to look at, I started to feel happier. I got healthier. Years and years of being in pain started to dissolve. My whole life started to shift as I did my inner work. And now the more I speak up, the more lives I touch, and the better I feel inside. I've discovered the way to transform this inner violence, the self-hatred, the lack of self-worth, the feeling unlovable, whatever all that inner junk is, it's really not the truth of who you are. But the way to transform it is to start to love it. It seems very counterintuitive. Inner violence has a very low frequency, and love has a very high frequency. And so you bring in the high frequency of love down around the self-hatred, the feeling not good enough, all of those lower frequencies, all of that nasty stuff that's residing in your unconscious, that's been passed down through your lineage, passed down in humanity's collective unconscious. And as we each start to love ourselves more deeply, amazing transformation takes place. And now we have the opportunity to create a whole new world. And this is a world that's based on love. It's based on you speaking up and telling your truth. You speaking up and sharing your amazing gifts. So the world needs you now. So it's time to love yourself. And as you do, the whole world starts to shift. Love yourself and make a ruckus. It's time to make a ruckus. To learn more, please visit drcynthiamiller.com. And I would love for you to follow me on Instagram. It's dr_Cynthia. So follow me on Instagram. Send me a direct message. I would love to hear from you. Thanks. Bye.